Hey guys, it's Tiny Logan back with another video for you. And today, don't panic, I've not lost my brains. We're going to be talking and reviewing some routers. Now, you may think to yourself, Tom, times aren't that hard. You don't need to be wasting your time on routers. Well, I think at the end, and when I go through the conclusion, you'll explain why I've set some time aside to be able to review these. But essentially, we have got and I have to get them around the right way, which is why I've got them on their boxes. But this is the Asus AC5300. And it's not what you would genuinely think a router would look like. Although there do seem to be versions kind of that are looking a lot more aggressive start to come out, but that's definitely the most bonkers mental. And I have to watch my my language, because I could have said some other stuff, but it's bonkers mental router I've ever seen. And like I said, it is incredibly aggressive. And then you've got what I would say is a more kind of generic looking router, but it still looks pretty meaty, and it's the RT AC88u. Now I'm actually running the 66U in the office at the moment, so I've got some experience with Asus routers. But what I want to do is I want to give you a good up close look of the difference between the two before we move on to talking about specifications and me boring you about the actual review side of it. So let's go and have an up close look, and then when we come back I will explain to you about everything that's going on inside of these little beasties. Okay, so we're going to start with the AC5300, and I'm going to show you around and about the aesthetics and the actual router itself before we start talking about what's really going on inside. So, at the top, this is actually, I'm not sure whether the camera will show us, but they are vents. When you look at it straight on, it doesn't look like it, but there are air vents down the side. So this is your, don't cover it up. This is so that the hot air can get out of the router itself. And while I remember, you can see all the routers here. I've kind of got them on like a 45 degree with the aerials. So I've got them at 45 degrees, and they do actually have like a stop. Now this is the optimal setup for the antennas. You can bob them all up if you want and have them up that way, but to have them stuck slightly out is the best way for your coverage with the antennas, which obviously takes up a fair bit of room because it's a big square unit. There are no wall mounts or anything on the back, so that's the way you kind of need to have it. This, as I'm kind of showing you around, this is the front side, or what I'm going to call the front side of the router. And what we can see here is some little LED slots, and you've got the power LED, 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. That shows you're connected to the internet. This shows that you've got networked, the network's being used, and then this is your WPS light. If we come round and we're going to go anti-clockwise, that is a plain side. Going round clockwise, what we can see here is we've got a USB 2 port, you've got an LED button, and this is so that you can turn all of the LEDs off on the front of the router. So if you find that you've got it in your bedroom or you're watching a film and the lights flash and are driving you crackers, you can just flick the button and it will turn all the lights off. Then you've got your WPS button and a Wi-Fi switch, so you can easily just totally disable the Wi-Fi should you need to. When we come right the way round to the back, we have the power switch. Nice and simple. It does actually go in to show it's on, and then fully out to show it's off. Then we have the AC in, and you do get a little adapter that comes with this. You've then got your USB 3 connection. You've got your WAN connection, because this is a router, so you'd need to have a modem to send your internet signal in. I'll talk to you about this more depth. And then you've got your 4 gigabit Ethernet ports. Moving on to the AC88u, and this looks more like what I would call a conventional router, rather than, you know, something from a sci-fi or like a weird spidery thing like the 53 does. So with this one, top, you have all of your LEDs that we were talking about before, power, 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, internet, network, USB 3, USB 2 lights you actually have on this one as well, and then your WPS light. On the front, and I'm going to call it the front, you have an LED switch here, so you can easily turn the LEDs on and off, and your Wi-Fi switch. They're quite big switches as well, so you're going to know you've pressed them. And then there is a little pull down here where your USB 3 is hidden. Again, we'll talk about all the USB 3s and all that type of stuff later. You can see you've got your 4 antennas. Now this vent here does have a little red like cover because it's hiding the switch. And I can honestly say, I actually think this should light up. And it's one of those weird ones where I've got a router in front of me and I'm like, ooh, could mod it. There are little air vents down here as well that kind of follow up, almost like in a car style as well. And it's wrong, but it's making me want to take it apart and put LEDs in. When we go right the way round to the back, what we find, I mean, the first thing that you're going to notice is there are 8 gig and a bit Ethernet ports at the back, and these will act like a switch as well. But if we stick to this side, we've got a reset switch, WPS switch, and then USB 2. You've got your 8 gigabit connections at the back. Then you've got your WAN here. So this is, again, where your internet would come in from your modem. Then you've got your power connector there and your on and off switch. If we come around the sides, you can see it's just kind of a normal angular design. You can see some air vents. On the bottom again, we've got the rubber feet, but there isn't, and you've got a rubber strip along there as well. There isn't any way to hang it on a wall, which might sound daft, but a lot of routers you can mount, and this one hasn't got any option for it, but you can see that there's a large open area here so that the air can radiate through and get out the top. But it does look like a good bit of kit. These are big chunky aerials. Again, you've got the 45-degree option with the antennas. I mean, you can get kind of like all funky monkey when you start setting them up to make it all look pretty, but you get what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of fiddling around that you can do, and it does look, you have to make sure that you keep them done up tight. It does look the part. It definitely doesn't look like your average run-of-the-mill cheapy-deepy router. Now, you would think that reviewing a wireless router would actually be really simple, but I've actually had to write some notes because I'm not a script monkey. I actually like to try and learn as much as I possibly can about these products or any of the products, and then kind of almost ad-lib to you to give you my best possible kind of thoughts on it without it being too overthought. I like it to come across natural, like it's two mates chatting in a pub. That's also why my videos end up being horrifically long, so I do apologise. But we have 2 mental looking routers, and then when you actually take the hood off and look at the specs underneath, there's a lot going on as well, which is why I have my notes. But essentially they both have a 1.4 gigahertz dual core Broadcom processor inside them, and that helps with speeding up all of the wireless transfers, the USB, because you can use the USB for cloud software and stuff like that, which we will talk about. And then you've got the network switch side of it as well. So they've both got a Broadcom 1.4 gigahertz dual core processor to take care of the main processing of the units themselves. Now, the AC53 has its tri-band. You've got a 2.4 gigahertz wireless, and then you've got 2 5 gigahertz wireless that will run independently as well. So if you have 3 wireless and you've got one connected to the 2.4, and then you've got 2 individual wireless items connected to 5 gigahertz, they will all have their own network each. Also with this one, you've got the 1.4 gigahertz dual core, but then it actually has some wireless offload processors, and the 2.4 and the 2.5s each have their own wireless offload processors. The 88 only has dual band. It's only got one 2.4 and one 5 gigahertz, so that has 2 offload processors in it as well. Now, I probably should have written down the fact that they've got 512, I think it's megabit of RAM in each of them as well, and there is also some other memory that's going on in it. But while I do remember, because I always should say this at the beginning, and I always forget, if you're interested in the in-depth specs and everything else that's going on, probably some of the stuff that I've forgotten, please click the link underneath and the card to go and have a look at the Overclock 3D website, where I've got some proper pictures of them and we've got a lot more information. Like I've said, I'm ad-libbing this as normal, so I may forget some minor details, but I'm going to try my best. So we've got all those processors. Now, the 88 here does have 4 extra Ethernet ports compared to the 53, and this does have an essentially the dual core will take care of 4 of the Ethernet ports like this, but it has an add-on Realtek chip to take care of the other 4. Now that, when I first read it, made me worried that you were going to get some delays between using different ports on the switch. I didn't really notice any difference whatsoever, neither speed nor latency or anything like that. None in the real world, kind of me looking at it type scenario. Now, when it does come to wireless testing, it does get quite difficult because you have to set so many variables so perfectly, and also you have to have something to compare to. Now, I do have the the A66 in the office, which is my personal router. But the problem with the building that I live in is it's made from reinforced concrete. Now, this is both a pain in the rear end for wireless routers because loads of the signal gets sucked out, but it's also a really good indication of stressing a router like these, because if I can't get a signal, like with the A66, if I go to the end of my front room near the balcony, don't go thinking it's posh, it's just a big window with a bit outside I can go and stand outside of. I've got a bit of a throat today, sorry. But if I use, because I have just purchased a Dell XPS 15, and it's the new one, the Skylake one, and if I go and sit at my desk with the A66, at my dinner table with the A66 by the balcony, I sometimes can't get a signal at all. Best case scenario is 1 bar, and that's because of the walls of the building. Now, crazy thing is, when you bring the AC53 into tow, the worst signal I've experienced was 1 below, you know, you get the little lines on your wireless, was 1 below maximum. And when I was just testing on the internet, just because I've got a 120 down package and a 20 meg up, this was absolutely balls raping that, you know, completely. I was having no problem with that at all. Now, with the older router, I would not have been able to have got that without moving to a different position in the front room. So although that's an incredibly basic way of me testing it, it does go to show that just something so simple has made a large difference just in my home. So we've gone from me having flaky signal to nigh on perfect signal. This one as well was pretty much the same. It never went below that bar, but one thing I will say is it was down that notch, that more often than this one was. Now, the 53, one of the reasons why the wireless on this is so much stronger is it does have 8 antennas, but it has 4 antennas to transmit and 4 to receive, whereas this shares them across all of it. And in fact, when you look in the paperwork for the 88, there isn't any specific mention of how they split the antennas, whether you have 2 independent to transmit and 2 to receive. Have asked, nobody seems to know. It's just one of those ones. So this is a big selling point of it. It's got 4 dedicated antennas to transmit and 4 dedicated antennas to receive, and it does show as well. Obviously, I mean, when it comes to 5 gigahertz devices at home, I'm pretty much limited to my laptop and my phone. And whereas before, as I've said, I would notice the signals really start to plummet. With this, they really, it was just a night and day difference. It was like a massive upgrade straight away. Now, one of the things that they both can do is link aggregation. And if you've got a home server or a NAS where you can, the Ethernet comes out, you can quite often team them. So with a normal Ethernet, you would have best case scenario, around 120 megabytes, so the big B, I'm trying to get them right, megabytes a second across your Ethernet network. By teaming the two, you can effectively, although it's never quite doubled, you can double the availability. If you do it properly as well, so you're not using one for up and one for down, you can actually double the speed so that you can transfer across your network effectively over 200 megabytes a second. Now these both have teaming available, so you could take two cables from your NAS or your router and then plug them into the router, and then you can team them up, and this will take the signal from both and use them as, you know, a doubled up line. And then effectively what you can do is then you could have two PCs then wired into the modem that you would be able to transfer both at maximum Ethernet speeds. So rather than them sharing one 120 megabyte line, you can then get both of them running as 120 megabyte. Now, one of the things I did think with the link aggregation is it would have been nice if the link aggregation wasn't just on two lines. So for argument's sake, like in my personal circumstances, I could have had my server coming in with dual lines and then my main rig coming in on dual lines as well. And that's something that you would have to deal with an external network switch, but you could still feed this with a lot more signal. Now, one of the things that you can do, one of the bonuses of being able to get a lot more data in from your server to the router is the fact that you could have, like I said, your rig transferring files at, for argument's sake, 120 megabytes a second. And then you could also have someone taking data remotely from another source, for argument's sake, like with Plex. My personal circumstance would be my girlfriend watching Plex, and then my sister could be on the wireless also watching Plex, and it wouldn't affect my status in the office. I'm personally going to be adding in a network switch so that my rig can absolutely rape through this as well. But anyway, so that was the only little niggle that I had, was the fact that you've only got two network aggregation ports, and that's probably the only niggles that I've got with them, full stop. So when we were talking about the wireless before, you had the 2.4 gigahertz, which because of all the extra mumbo jumbo that's going on inside, that will be up to 1,000 megabits a second. The 5 gigahertz is up to 2,000 megabits a second. Now, one of the things that I do want to say about the 5 gigahertz and the link aggregation is the fact that because of the absolutely ridiculous throughput, it does mean that I'm going to be able to, with my laptop, have much faster connections to my server. Now, I do run remote desktop on my server and transfer files in and out of it quite a bit. So the fact that I'm going to be able to now pretty much get gigabit speeds over the wireless plus a bit on top is absolutely brilliant. And that's, again, it's another trait to the fact that these are now getting so advanced that the wireless isn't, now it's not, you know, so much of a big drawback. Now, looking at my list, I know that I've talked to you about a lot of bits and bobs, but one of the things is, while we're on wireless, is the beamforming. It's called AI radar. And essentially, if you go and read up on it on the Overclock 3D website, essentially, if someone's not got much signal over one area, it almost transforms the way the wireless is beamed and focuses it so that you all get an amazing service. It does that, it does that automatically. The other thing that I really liked was what they're calling AI protection, and it's they've got some Trend Micro, I don't want to say software, but Trend Micro stuff on both of these. So essentially, now I don't want to say this is an end to antivirus, but they essentially do a lot of that outside of your PC for you. So for argument's sake, if you had a PC trying to connect on your network, say for argument's sake your brother's laptop, he's been watching some dodgy stuff on a certain hub, and he's picked up some viruses, these can actually pick that up and email you to let you know that they found some dodgy stuff on a system, and it, you know, the system might not be entirely safe, and you can actually let them block that system from being used on until it's been rectified. What you can also do is the AI protection can stop you going on dodgy websites, period. So one of the good things here, and this is something that we do need to talk about with the parental control, is you can set it up so any XXX sites literally can't be accessed at all. So if you've got young kids and stuff like that, you can turn that on. Now don't worry, calm down boys, we know you want access to that as well, especially when your missus isn't looking. So you can actually have that parental control stuff just linked to certain devices, so you can set it to mobiles and desktops. And you can actually set a lot of that stuff up with time restrictions as well, which we will talk about again in a minute. So you've got a lot of antivirus stuff that's going on in this, and you can turn it on and off as well, you know, if you don't want it. But it's just another layer of protection. That can also stop you from DDoS attacks and brute force attacks. They've essentially just kind of got almost like when Popeye eats his spinach, that's kind of what the Trend Micro stuff has brought to the table with this. It's almost like an enterprise level, another layer of protection that they've now brought in with the wireless routers as well. Now, we were talking about QoS before, quality of service, and the parental controls on these are actually really, really good. You can turn specific devices wireless on and off as and when you want. So for argument's sake, if you've got a young child that goes to bed with a Huddle or an iPad or something like that, you can deny the access to Wi-Fi for that device, for argument's sake, from 9 o'clock onwards. If that's the time that they're meant to go to bed, you can take control of that. Now, it may seem a bit like Big Brother and you're taking control of stuff too much, but how many of you out there have had trouble getting them to go to sleep when because you have to actively go in and turn stuff off? Or if you do like your routers and stuff, you then have to manually go in on the 192.168 and go in and deny it manually. Well, now you can do it all automatically and you don't have to have anything to do with it, and you can just tell them when it goes off, that's when it goes off for everyone. But anyway, let's leave the parenting out of it. You get the idea, and if that's made you smile and go, oh my God, then that little section was for you. So again, with the parental controls, you can completely deny access to certain devices, not just all of them, to adult, instant message and communications, peer-to-peer and file transfer, and streaming and entertainment. Yes, I am reading from my notes, but with that, you can also do it again around a schedule. So for argument's sake, if you've got a teenager, they're up till 3 o'clock in the morning talking to their mates on Skype or WhatsApp, which is a really important one, you can set the instant message and comms to turn off, for argument's sake, at 11 o'clock. So with those type of things in mind, I think you're starting to understand why A, I've kept notes, and B, why I was actually quite impressed with these, because I've now got, because of our parents passing, I've now got my young sister living with me, and trying to get them to go to bed is ridiculous. So these type of things are going to make me really annoying, really annoying. The other thing is with that protection that we put in, don't forget that then kind of gives you as a parent some really nice peace of mind in the fact that you know that they can't stumble on the wrong things, and then you can also kind of set cut-offs and you don't have to have anything to do with it, and these just kind of trot on and get on and do their work. And like I said, when stuff goes off, stuff goes off. So it's brilliant. I love the fact that you can set it, and you can do it literally, it's set for times and days of the week as well. So don't go thinking that, you know, on Saturdays and Sundays they're still going to be getting turned off. No, you can leave it totally open. So there's loads of stuff for that is really, really good. The other thing is Asus have actually brought a mobile app that you can use once you're in your home network, that you can go in and do all of the stuff that you would normally do through the browser app. With the browser app, you pretty much do 192.168.1.1, and then you sign in to the router, and then .1.0, I can't remember now, I'm trying to think of .1.1, I'm pretty sure it is .1.1, I'm being silly. So you can sign in and then that's how you configure everything, that's how you can keep a look at everything. But now they've got this mobile app as well, so you don't even necessarily need all the time, because sometimes you do need to get on to be able to, you know, get access properly. But with a lot of it, you can keep an eye on what's going on, who's signing in, who's not signing in, who's using what via the app. One of the other things that I didn't talk about with the QoS is you can actually, and this is something again that may be really, really handy. Now, this is probably for those of you out there that have got the router in your room because you're the computer boss in the house. Mum and dad don't really know a great deal, or if you are dad and the kids don't really know a great deal, you can set up bandwidth limitations. Now, you may think to yourself, well, what do we want to do that for? Well, let's face it, a lot of you out there have probably been doing stuff and the kids are absolutely just gobbling up all of the bandwidth. They're either on YouTube, downloads, and if you're not one of those people that's lucky enough to have like a cable package where you're running 80, 90, 160, 200 megasecond, and you're one of the people that are still out in the sticks and your bandwidth's a bit limited, you can actually tell what their device is allowed. So if you've got 8 megabits a second and you effectively need 5 for your gaming, you can then limit everybody else to that 3. So you can go in and say, for argument's sake, that phone is only allowed this, because let's face it, if she wants to watch YouTube, she can get on a laptop, and if the laptop's allowed this much, you can literally throttle that down. And again, you can do that bandwidth limitations, and you can set that all up with time schedules as well, which is brilliant. The fact that we've got so much control over everything is absolutely amazing. Now, one of the things I do want to say is I think that this is like a kind of a big office style router, because you've got all the connections for the switch on the back, and you've only got the dual networking, so you've got 2.4 and then you've got 5 gigahertz. This one is the hardcore wireless router. We've only got the 4 ports on the back, but one of the things I can say is I think this is for like a hardcore, if you've got maybe like a big house, but a lot of devices going on. So you've got your TV set up on wireless for Plex, and everyone's doing the, like the streaming for the on-demand stuff. And you've got games, phones, iPads. This is the hardcore wireless box. That, yeah, you might have a PC attached to it somewhere along the lines as well, but pretty much everyone's like running off of the wireless. This is going to be the one that you want. This is the big daddy one. That extra 5 gigahertz network is going to make a big difference. You can also, if you want, use this as an access point as well. So if you had both of them, for argument's sake, which is something that's really been tickling me, you can set it up so this is just an access point, and this does all the routery stuff, and this is just like a giant wireless router that's stuck off in the distance. This one I think is for someone that's got more wired devices, maybe someone like me that you've got a couple of systems in the room and then a limited kind of wireless connection, so the normal, a few phones, maybe a laptop, TV, for argument's sake. But this one is more based on that wired because of all the connections with the switch. Now, with the connections with the switch, that could be a home server, it could be a NAS. I've got a network printer. This is going to stop you maybe the possibility of not needing to buy the extra external switch. With both of them, the only time that you would need an external switch is if you were really interested in that link aggregation coming from your NAS or your server, and you've got 2 lines going into that. You may need an external switch with full manual control so that you can get that link aggregation going onto your main rig as well. I know that the newer Asus X99 and Z170 motherboards that do have the dual Intel Ethernets, they can be teamed up so that you can team them up with this, like I was talking about before. So if you're really interested in big network stuff across the big speeds across your network, then that's the only time that you may need to think about a separate managed switch. If you're not, and you just want some to be able to get as much data into this as possible, and then everybody else either on normal Ethernet running at max capacity and wireless running at max capacity, then the link aggregation on this will be absolutely fine for your NAS and your home server. Right, so I think now you may have started to understand why that I gave some time to review some routers. I ended up deciding to give them, because the 88 comes in at $299 and the AC5300 comes in at $399. Now this one, the extra cost is because of all those extra antennas, the fact that you've got the extra wireless 5 gigahertz. So that's where the extra price comes from with this one. So I decided I was going to give them both the Performance Award. Now they are, I personally think this is as close as you're going to get to ROG routers, because they look absolutely mental. I've actually used both of these as well and tested and spent time with these, with the mobile app, testing the wireless, and like I said, I'm totally sold. Even the one with the 4 antennas made a huge difference to my home use, but the difference between this was crazy. You know, you could see the difference. So if you've got massive houses, or you're unlucky like me and have got really thick walls and are struggling going even into the next room with wireless signal drop, this will make a pretty large difference to your use. And that's why I've not given you too much about speeds and the like, because the speeds that I get at home will be drastically different to the type of speeds that you may get depending on the way everything's laid out. So OC3D Performance Award for both of them, totally aggressive looks. This one you're going to need to get yourself somewhere dedicated to put it so that you can get the antennas and everything set up. This one is more kind of generic, it's not going to take up too much room, could easily be mounted down the back of your desk or on a windowsill or something like that, and you won't have too many issues. But this is the one, more than any of them, that's made me want to think about lighting them up. And when a router got me excited and I was like, whoa, I could start playing with that, that is the moment that it made me realise I was totally sold, and I actually really like them. Yes, they're eye-watering, but I think the amount that they deliver kind of backs that up. So you've got the 2 different ones. You can decide which one would be best for you. Do you have the room for them and all that type of stuff? Are you hardcore wireless? Do you need a few more network ports? That type of thing. And then you can work out whether you need to spend that extra £100 or not. But I can wholeheartedly recommend them because even I want them. So, OC3D Performance Award, I've taken enough of your time. Thank you for tuning in. I hope I covered everything. If I didn't, don't forget, click the link underneath and go to the OC3D forums. Like I have said in a couple of the other videos recently, if you're having troubles getting your email, your verification email through from the forums, if you're trying to join, some email providers at the moment are blocking our emails getting through. So if you do get any problems, either tweet us or hit the contact us link and I can manually add you, and then you'll get your access, because sometimes it will look like you're a member but you can't post or anything like that, and that's just because you've not fully authorized your email yet. So if you get any problems, hit us up, I will get you on. We would love to have you, but for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan reviewing routers. I never thought I'd review routers, but these are awesome. So out. Ding! I was a bit delayed there, wasn't I? Ding! Yeah, just give up for today, Tom.